like back in chapter 1 of 2 Samuel, people who think they're bringing good news to David ultimately wind up paying the price for having a hand in the fall of David's enemies. While it may have sort of helped David in the long run, that doesn't mean that David was happy about it. More so that it's not like David was happy about the way that it happened. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. Alright. So now we're looking at 2 Samuel chapter 4. Abner, who was commanding Ishbosheth's army, Ishbosheth being Saul's son, opposed to David. Both were kings of part of Israel, but honestly, Ishbosheth was kind of king over a larger portion of it, I think. I don't think Judah was that big in comparison to all the rest. But David was king of Judah, Ishbosheth was king of other parts of Israel, and then Abner had tension with Ishbosheth over being accused of something. I don't know if infidelity is quite the right word, but something along those lines. And then Abner, in his being upset with Ishbosheth, defected to David's side and was ready to help him, only for one of David's other commanders, who had no idea about this, to come in and basically kill Abner. But in any case, though, Abner had kind of, stoked the fires a bit of handing things over more fully to David. So, that's kind of where we're at with things as we get into 2 Samuel chapter 4 here. Alright, so, here we go, 2 Samuel chapter 4. When Ishbosheth, Saul's son, heard about Abner's death at Hebron, he lost all courage, and all Israel became paralyzed with fear. Now there were two brothers, Baanah and Rechab, who were captains of Ishbosheth's raiding parties. They were sons of Rimmon, a member of the tribe of Benjamin, who lived in Beeroth. The town of Beeroth is now part of Benjamin's territory, because the original people of Beeroth fled to Gittaim, where they still live as foreigners. Still being relative to the original writing and or reading of this, which obviously is a long time ago. Note there at Ishbosheth is probably the same as the last chapter. It just says it's another name for Eshbaal. Now, also, when it says all Israel became paralyzed with fear, I assume that means all Israel that was under Ishbosheth's command, under his reign. Not so much Judah. Because Judah was being ruled by David. Abner dying, I don't think, would have really struck fear into those loyal to David. It was unfortunate, yes, they did mourn his death, but they still, I don't think it would have struck fear into them. Okay, so it mentions these brothers who were captains of Ishbosheth's raiding parties. It does not say what they have done yet, though. Maybe we'll get to that as we continue on here. With verse 4. Saul's son Jonathan had a son named Mephibosheth, who was crippled as a child. He was 5 years old when the report came from Jezreel that Saul and Jonathan had been killed in battle. When the child's nurse heard the news, She picked him up and fled, but as she hurried away, she dropped him and he became crippled. Okay. Let's continue to see how that might be relevant, maybe. One day, Rechab and Baanah, the sons of Rimmon from Beeroth, went to Ishbosheth's house around noon as he was taking his midday rest. The doorkeeper, who had been sifting wheat, became drowsy and fell asleep. So Rechab and Baanah slipped past her. They went into the house and found Ishbosheth sleeping on his bed. They struck and killed him and cut off his head. Then, taking his head with them, they fled across the Jordan Valley through the night. When they arrived at Hebron, they presented Ishbosheth's head to David. "Look," they exclaimed to the king, "here is the head of Ishbosheth, son of your enemy Saul, who tried to kill you. Today the Lord has given my lord, the king, revenge on Saul and his entire family." Okay, this parenthetical thing, I'm not totally sure how it's related yet. Let me check the note there. Mephibosheth is another name for Meribbaal. Okay. Just another name-related note. So, yeah, this whole thing has not been mentioned as being relevant. I guess other than to say that there was maybe some other descendant of Saul that was, like, was crippled, but maybe not involved in all of this conflict. But long story short, these brothers who were captains of Ishbosheth's raiding parties actually went and killed Ishbosheth. This reads as in the Greek version. Hebrew says, "So they went into the house pretending to fetch wheat, but they stabbed him in the stomach." Okay. I guess maybe that was their way of... The way that would read, I guess, would have been like they were trying to sort of slip in a little bit disguised, or with, acting like they had other intentions. But yeah, they went in, killed Ishbosheth. Then it says they fled across the Jordan Valley. Hebrew says the Arabah. That was probably more so what it was called back then. But sometimes for modern reading context, the translations will give us a different name that'd be more recognizable today. So, they kill Ishbosheth, take his head as proof to David, and they're all like, "Look, God has given you victory." But was it really motivated by God? Debatable. But anyway, they're just trying to let David know about this and maybe get on his good side by acting like, they've helped him. But then we get to verse 9. But David said to Rechab and Baanah, "The Lord who saves me from all my enemies is my witness. Someone once told me Saul is dead, thinking he was bringing me good news. But I seized him and killed him at Ziklag. That's the reward I gave him for his news. How much more should I reward evil men who have killed an innocent man in his own house and on his own bed? Shouldn't I hold you responsible for his blood and rid the earth of you?" So David ordered his young men to kill them, and they did. They cut off their hands and feet and hung their bodies beside the pool in Hebron. Then they took Ishbosheth's head and buried it in Abner's tomb in Hebron. So, like back in chapter 1 of 2 Samuel, people who think they're bringing good news to David ultimately wind up paying the price for having a hand in the fall of David's enemies. David is clearly not a vengeful type of person, which is the exact opposite of what Saul was. Saul was all about vengeance and just trying to be as, violent, ruthless, and, get as far ahead in that way as he could. But just like what happened with the man who reported Saul's death, who technically had a hand in killing him, because, okay, so according to that man, he saw Saul seriously wounded. Saul asked this man to kill him, so the man granted Saul's request, but David is still like, you shouldn't have done that. He was the Lord's anointed one. And because God is God, he might have, thought, well, something else could have happened with Saul. Maybe he would have still lived. In any case, though, it was also kind of common rule, practice, maybe even law. In fact, I think even law. Kind of the old eye for an eye idea, but in this case, extrapolate that out, or expand that to a life for a life. Similar idea going on here, where it's like, Ishbosheth, yeah, he was opposed to David, but he was otherwise innocent. He was, trying to, rule over the people. I mean, we don't know much about how good that Ishbosheth was as a ruler, but in any case, still, yeah. David didn't like them killing a guy who, to his understanding, was otherwise innocent. So, he's like, okay, well, life for a life. You did this. You shouldn't have. The penalty for that is death. So, while it may have sort of helped David in the long run, that doesn't mean that David was happy about it. More so that it's not like David was happy about the way that it happened. But anyway, that's all I got for 2 Samuel chapter 4. Much shorter chapter than the last one. Alright, so, rather short chapter that time, but we got another person who apparently thinks that they're helping David by killing an opponent of his, and David not liking it. This is debatably the third time, at least the second, though. The whole thing with Joab killing Abner in the previous chapter, it was as much for revenge as it was for trying to help David. But anyway, yeah. I don't know why people think that doing something that is generally kind of bad, murder, that's a good thing. But, anyway. Maybe if it were happening in the midst of combat, or some other situation like that, David wouldn't take issue with it. But, anyway, I digress. As always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel, click the bell if you're on YouTube to get updates when I post new videos. If you're seeing this anywhere else, give me a follow or whatever you got to do there. Look down in the description for info on social media pages and where to find and follow those. And leave comments down below all that with any thoughts you have. So that'll do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. But whatever the case is, until next time, stay cool, people.